All right, guys. So welcome in to the channel. We're bringing the energy tonight, man, because the Baltimore Ravens are hosting their first ever AFC Championship in Baltimore. And let me tell you what, this last game against the Texans, I was a little bit scared. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit scared, and I was getting nervous. I feel a whole lot better about this game. Me and Cole really haven't even talked about how we feel about it yet. So you're going to get our raw live reaction on how we feel about this game. So we got Cole Jackson of Road Graders on YouTube helping us to break down this Baltimore Ravens and Chiefs preview in the AFC Championship. The two best quarterbacks in the league right now going head to head. We got all the storylines with John Harbaugh and Coach Reed. We're going to have a heck of a game. We're also going to talk about this Texans and Ravens game that we got to see unfold, where it started off a little bit shaky. But Cole, welcome into the show.
Thanks, brother. Feeling good, man. Just feel like the monkey's off the back, right?
Yes.
That first half felt just like if the Ravens lose that game against Houston, how much does this team start to feel like the Cowboys, like the team that just can't win in the playoffs? And that first half felt like the rest of the playoffs have felt. And then they come out in H2 and just absolutely return to dominant football. It was just like, I think they needed that, obviously not just to win the game, but I think they needed that just for themselves, just to be like, hey,
Yeah,
we can play in this, and now we're here. And
I agree.
so if they go on a run and they win, the next game and they're in the big one, I'm going to look back to that moment, just that adjustment in the second half and the dominant defensive stands. It's just, God, it feels good. Like, it just really feels like this team's ready to fly.
Yeah, it felt exactly how you said, the monkey off the back, the confidence, because it only takes one win and to prove to yourselves, hey, this ain't 2019 anymore, baby. This is the 2023 Baltimore Ravens. We just won in the playoffs. We're hosting an AFC Championship, and we're ready to go. So I also feel like we match up with the Chiefs pretty well, which we're going to get into. But before we dive into that, how do you feel about how the game unfolded? I know there were some nerves in the beginning, but is there anything that stood out to you on how the Ravens adjusted and how that game unfolded with the Houston Texans?
Yeah, so I got a video coming out on the channel tomorrow that's going to focus on the blitz in the first half and what they did in the second half. So that'll really kind of dive into the nitty gritty. But essentially, the defense was great from start to finish. There wasn't one moment where we were like, damn, this defense is killing us. It was, they shut down the run. They completely contained Nico Collins. Dalton Schultz didn't really do anything. They were dominant. The defensive side of the ball, just completely dominant. You look at the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, I get that a lot. The offensive side of the ball was just, the game plan was just so puzzling to me. Their biggest weakness was middle of the field defense, and their biggest strength was run defense. And the Ravens were hell bent on establishing the run and setting up play action for deep shots. Isaiah Likely didn't have one target in the first half, and it just and the thing with the deep shots and the blitz and all that, that was kind of happening in the first half. It was a bit of a mixture of things. It was Todd Monken calling plays where the first and second read were 10, 15-yard developing routes. But also Lamar Jackson didn't take his checkdowns in the first half. That's just a clear as day fact. And so the adjustments in the second half, that's the key. That's why they won this football game. They went, and we heard about it from Jeff Zrebiec. He talked about, or he quoted Lamar talking about how he was, fired up in the locker room at halftime, and seeing the passion, the leadership, the maturity, the steps forward taken by a 27-year-old Lamar Jackson is enough to get anyone excited. But just seeing them come out and blitz beater, just nonstop, those quick hitters. One of the first catches out of the half was a quick out to Isaiah Likely. He throws his hand into one of the defenders and takes him for a 15-yard ride. So just little things like that, but they just completely made them adjust. And so halftime adjustments on the offensive side of the ball, and Lamar Jackson being an MVP. That's what's got done for them.
Yeah, man, this feels like a different Lamar Jackson, and it's really a completely different coaching staff that John Harbaugh did such a good job of building a complete staff. I mean, I look at the defensive line coach and Anthony Weaver, the outside linebackers coach, and Chuck Smith. We got the secondary coach. We got, I mean, all over the place. We added Willie Taggart to the running back room, Coach Monken, the wide receivers coach, I believe
You're
we brought
missing
over
the
from Kansas City.
MVP, Joe Delisandris, my boy.
The offensive line coach, he's
offensive
been
line
steady.
coach.
But I'm specifically talking about some of the new guys that were brought in that just brought in a lot of juice. And the adjustments with this team is what gets me so encouraged, because you saw, you know, in 2019, it felt like we were just going to ran what we ran. Like Wink Martindale was going to blitz, and then he was going to blitz, and then he was going to blitz some more. And he didn't always disguise stuff. He didn't always mix up coverages. Not saying that he did, not saying that he wasn't a good coordinator, but he didn't have the same level of adjustment and game-to-game adjustments and game planning as I feel Mike McDonald has had. And then the same thing with our offense. Like Greg Roman did some great things. And I know a lot of guys bash on Greg Roman, but the reality is in 2019, we had the best offense in football, broke records, but he wasn't always known for in-game adjustments. And that was so encouraging to see Todd Monken pull off that in-game adjustment with the help of Lamar Jackson and the offensive line, and, you know, how they kind of, the receivers, and all kind of worked hand in hand to making sure that they were able to move the ball in the second half. Because let me tell you what, man, I was nervous. Like when that second half came, I was so mad because, first of all, we were up, 10-3. And I'm like, all right, we're about to punt. I got to use the bathroom real quick. I run to the bathroom, and 3 seconds later, I hear my wife saying something, and I come back, and it's 10-10. I'm like, what just happened? So we had the punt return, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. Like, this ain't about to happen. And we had a chance to score, squandered that opportunity. I think twice we had a chance to score before the half. But the second half, completely different football team. It felt like they could finally breathe again after that second half. And I love how whenever John Harbaugh was asked at halftime, you know how they always do like the little halftime interview. They were like, what do you got to do to adjust? And he was like, just kind of content, smiling, like, we got to score. We'll be all right. Like, you just love how content, how calm he was. I felt like that rubbed off to the rest of the team, you know, right there at the top with the head coach. So let's get into, you know, if there was anything else that you saw with this Ravens and Texans game. I know we were talking about some of the pressure and the blitz and stuff like that. Do you feel like there was any individual poor performances on the offensive line with protection, or do you feel like it was more a result of schematic issues and, like you said, not hitting the check down, not running the quick slants, you know, the blitz beaters?
The first half, John Simpson struggled mightily. If you guys go to my Twitter account, it's in my tag there. So go check that out. I did a couple plays, and listen, I'm not one that wants to, you know, point players out and talk about them playing shitty, but John Simpson almost got Lamar Jackson killed in this game. You know, he missed a stunt really bad. They did a 4-man slide to the right, and he came off it to block nobody back to his left, and another player came around and almost got Lamar killed again. So struggled mightily in the first half. One player that's played incredible was Ronnie Stanley. And so if you guys go down into the description of this video, I just put out my breakdown on him. It's playing without his knee brace. So his knee brace came off. I don't know what the hell happened over the last 2 weeks, but he didn't need the knee brace anymore. And listen,
he had that injected with some type of, you know,
deer antler spray.
Substance.
I'm pretty
yes.
sure. I don't like. I've never really spent a video talking about another player's backside as much, but Ronnie Stanley's finally able to bend and drop his ass again, drop his anchor. And it was like watching from the last 18 weeks till now, like watching a completely different player. I've never seen anything change in 1 week so fast. So that was super exciting.
Awesome.
You know, seeing something like that, obviously that really limits the impact of poor play from John Simpson, because he's squished between Ronnie Stanley playing really well and a Pro Bowl center and Tyler Linderbaum. So,
right.
And then you got Kevin Zeitler and Morgan Moses. So when you have one player on your team, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week, the left side of the line was a concern, because if you have one player on your line, you can use, you know, schematics, slide protections, all that good stuff to help that one player. When you have two players side by side, when you have a Tyree Phillips and beside a DJ Fluker, when you have a, you know, a Matt Skura, who's banged up beside a Bradley Bozeman playing left guard when he should be center. When you have two players beside each other that are struggling, really hard to scheme that up. John Simpson struggled in the first half. I think he had a phenomenal second half, especially in his run blocking. There was that 9-play drive where they just ran it down their throat. John Simpson, plenty of key blocks. So it wasn't just all bad, but in the first half, specifically in pass protection, really, really bad. So that one really popped. But Ronnie Stanley just looked incredible. I thought Tyler Linderbaum played really well. Kevin Zeitler is playing through that injury. He gave up a sack early. It took him a while to kind of kick off the rust. So that stood out to me. But as soon as he settled in, again, a hell of a last 3 quarters. Just really impressive there. And I thought Morgan Moses, who's playing with that torn labrum, again, played pretty well. When you factor in how much that's got to hurt every time he lands his punch, just super impressive to see these guys showing that toughness.
Yeah, man, it's really encouraging, especially with Ronnie Stanley, because when you think about like a Super Bowl team, you think about the most important positions on your roster. With your offense, you automatically go to quarterback, left tackle, who's protecting the quarterback's blind side, and then you think about a weapon, like a receiver for them, right? And they got check right now because Ronnie Stanley playing his best football in the postseason, man, that's so encouraging. Then you got Lamar Jackson, who is hungry, determined, focused, locked in. Then you got receivers all over the place. I thought Rashad Bateman had a nice game, made some key catches for our Baltimore Ravens. Zay Flowers, and then Odell Beckham Jr. had the one nice catch over the middle for 12 yards. And then Isaiah Likely, man, this guy, I know he's got wiggle, and I know he's elusive, but he's also just like a junkyard dog when he gets the football in his hands. Like that stiff arm is nasty, man. That thing comes out and it's not playing around. Like it's taking somebody to the turf. So I love Isaiah Likely's mentality. And I think this could be the game that we get his counterpart back in Mark Andrews.
Oh, he's playing.
Playing. I think so too. And I don't know how much. I don't think it really matters because I think I saw someone put it out on Twitter. Whenever Mark Andrews walks out of that stadium, whenever he walks out of the tunnel, man, the whole place is going to erupt. It's going to bring so much energy and spark to the whole team.
It's one of those situations where, and I know this was a big talk, right? Like the offense really started clicking after Mark Andrews got hurt. Obviously, that wasn't a Mark Andrews issue, but people thought that Mark Andrews was being stared down. We talked about it a little bit last week. I disagree with that, but yeah. I do think I don't want to completely see Isaiah Likely go away, and he's not going to. Mark Andrews is still going to be playing, he's going to be playing situational football, red zone situations, third downs, that sort of thing. So Likely's not going anywhere. And the beauty is that when you get into a situation like that, the Ravens know how to use 12 personnel really well. They've been doing it with Patrick Ricard, so they can just incorporate Likely, especially with the way he can chip and then leak out and use that yak once he's out in space. There's just so many creative ways that he can be used, and Todd Monken is getting a really good feeling for how to use these guys. So yeah, I'm pretty confident you're going to see Mark Andrews come back, and it's just, again, another weapon in the arsenal for the Baltimore Ravens.
We got one of the Lamar haters coming out of the woodworks. I'm assuming we got a Chiefs fan here.
No, this dude was in here last week, and he was talking up the Texans. What happened, buddy? Yeah. What happened, son?
Keep the same energy, man. Keep it coming.
Thanks for the click on the video, though. We appreciate your view.
The engagement.
Go click on Road Graders.
It's all love, but if you're going to talk trash, we got to get the trash talk back. So what do you think about – let's dive into all things Chiefs because this is a matchup, man. This is fun. This is like what you prepare for all season. Like I remember doing videos on the Baltimore Ravens during OTAs, the draft, training camp. I remember going to training camp. Like it's all built up to have this type of opportunity. So this is like the peak level of excitement to where you got the two best quarterbacks in the National Football League, in my opinion, going head to head. You got the coaching situation. You got all this, and I'm fired up for it, man. What is your initial thoughts about the Ravens getting to host the Kansas City Chiefs?
Best on best, there's no one I'd rather go through than the defending champs. A lot of talk in December. They obviously hit a bit of a wall. They seem to do it every year. Last year it was a little earlier than December, but they hit a wall and then they kind of got things clicking. Obviously, there's a bit of a talent differential based on previous teams. But Patrick Mahomes kind of makes everything not matter anymore, just with his abilities. So, we're going to have to go through the best to get there. And that's exactly how it should be. You think back to that 2012 team going through Luck, then Peyton, then Brady, just to get out of the AFC, right? So obviously we're going from Stroud, which is a little comparable to Luck, and now you're getting the Peyton Brady type guy in Patrick Mahomes. So I'm excited about it. I have no issue with it. Not worried about it at all. I think this team is geared up to beat a team like this. They can score, they can stop. They match up really well with them on defense. I know we're going to dive into it a little bit more specifically, but I like the matchup. I like the matchup with the Bills too. I think they match up with just about any team in this league. It's all going to be predicated on stopping the run. I think that's the only area where I've felt that the Ravens have struggled consistently across multiple games. It just hasn't mattered and the Chiefs are the same, right? They've struggled to stop the run. You saw James Cook, running all over them at times. But it doesn't matter because their offense is able to put up points. And so, they are able to change the game script where a team can't just keep running it down unless they're also scoring efficiently. So that's kind of the key to me.
Yeah, I agree too. I think that's kind of the one part that's kind of masked our run defense issues, I feel like, is our red zone defense. Because like you're saying, we may let the ball move between the 20s and they might pick up some chunks in the rushing attack, but then we stiffen up in the red zone. And if you keep kicking field goals all game, like, you're not going to win in the postseason. It's just the reality of the situation. I want to dive in. Let's start with the Baltimore Ravens offense versus the Kansas City Chiefs number 2 overall defense, because the Ravens, we got the number 1 overall defense in the National Football League, and right behind the Baltimore Ravens is the Kansas City Chiefs, allowing about 17 points per game. A really impressive defense. I know last week we talked a little bit about their one edge rusher there. I've drawn a blank on his name.
Karlaftis?
Yes, George Karlaftis. He presents some issues. They have a great secondary. They got good linebackers. They got Chris Jones in the middle. So how do you feel about the Baltimore Ravens offense going against this number 2 ranked defense?
It's a tough matchup. There's some areas that they got some athletic linebackers. I think that's really the key. They're going to be able to spy the run game. They got a true shutdown in L'Jarius Sneed. They got a hard-hitting safety in Reed. The big thing, and I mean, I'm kind of a broken record on this. It's going to come down to the trench play. But that's just the reality of playoff football. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, those big defensive linemen going against ours. Can they keep Lamar in a situation to have success? That's going to be the big question to me. Now, I would say when I look at them, I was a little more confident about our matchup with our tackles against Anderson and Greenard, because they're kind of your typical speed rushers. You're getting a little bit more power rushers here, and those are the guys that have given us a problem. So that's where I'm really intrigued to see how this matchup goes down. If you look at DVOA, Kansas City was ranked 7th overall as defense. The Baltimore Ravens were 1st. So they take a bit of a step back based on DVOA and matchups played and how they played against top defenses, but they're still a top 10 defense, and they're still very good. So it's just one of those things where they just got to be on. And that's where I think what I'm worried about in this game, if I'm worried about anything, it's having a slow start. Letting them kind of control the game script is the key for me. But, you take a look and I don't know, like they don't really have that stud edge player. They got Karlaftis, who's really good, but he's not really into that stud territory yet. They got the stud inside in Chris Jones, but I really like the way we're able to scheme up double teams to take advantage of those guys. It's really going to come down to how they play that linebacking core, and they played a lot of base. You saw a lot of Gay, Bolton, and Tranquil on the field. So what I think
one of them got nicked up, right?
I think it was Willie Gay. Yeah, and Willie Gay is kind of a really interesting one because he's He runs like a 4.4, like athletic freak. And he's the type of guy that he's kind of like a JOK from Cleveland, where they're going to just kind of have him on Lamar Jackson the whole game. And one thing I'd like to see the Ravens not do against this team is get away from the option runs. I don't think they're going to work well. You saw the way the Texans played them. We didn't have a lot of success on true options where they're doing, the zone read sort of thing. They had the most success when they just kind of ran downhill, and they had a ton of success on when they ran downhill and then set up those naked bootleg rushes where, Lamar scored one of his touchdowns and he got that 4th and 1 where they pulled Ronnie Stanley out on both of them. So that's what I'd like to see, but they got some good ball players on that defense, but it's going to come down to the O-line to me. Can the O-line hold up? Can the O-line move bodies? And can they kind of hammer the run game to kind of keep that game script going the way they want it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how our offense is able to move the ball. But first, got to give a shout out to how about those Chiefs? Huge YouTube presence and excellent content. Make sure you guys go check out his channel as well, because he's going to have some great content helping to preview this game. So let's dive into what I perceive the Kansas City Chiefs' biggest weakness on their defense. Because if you look at their run defense, and we were talking about their defensive tackles, their beef up front, besides Chris Jones, I don't think their defensive tackles have been all that impressive as far as against the run in particular. I could be wrong here. Obviously, I don't watch the Chiefs every single Sunday like some people do. But from what I've seen, it looks like they could be had in the middle of that defensive line. We know they have some powerful edge setters and some linebackers, but I think that, like you were saying, with some double teams on Chris Jones, we could have some success, because I think overall the Kansas City Chiefs run defense is somewhere around 18th in the league, but their yards per carry, this is where it gets really interesting, because they're allowing the 24th most in yards per carry for their run defense. And if you look at one of their strengths of their defense, their pass rush, and it's not necessarily one particular guy that's getting it, all the efficient pressure. Like, of course, Chris Jones is that guy, but similar to the Ravens, like, it comes from all over the place. Steve Spagnuolo is an excellent defensive coordinator. John Harbaugh was talking about today, but the Chiefs are actually second in the NFL in sacks with 57, only 3 behind the Baltimore Ravens at 60. So the Chiefs get to the quarterback almost as much as our Baltimore Ravens. So if I'm looking at this game plan, man, do I want to run the ball early and often. I want to see. I know there's a lot of controversy about how much we should run Lamar Jackson, but to me, it's the playoffs. I say run the RPO, run the quarterback draw, run some of the offensive, run schemes with the quarterback, and also, if I look at another defense or another weakness on the Chiefs, it's been their turnover differential. This year, I think they have a -11 turnover differential. So they don't necessarily create a lot of turnovers on defense, but they have coughed the ball up on offense. I think Patrick Mahomes, as amazing as he is, has thrown 14 interceptions. And we do know that our defense is very prone to catch a lot of those interceptions. So when I'm looking at how our offense in particular stacks up against this defense, I want to run the ball a lot and not necessarily get in those 3rd and long situations where Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and some of those other exotic blitzes are coming after Lamar Jackson. And I also want to say that the most any team has scored on the Kansas City Chiefs defense all season was the Green Bay Packers with 27 points. So the Kansas City Chiefs haven't given up over 30 all year. That's really impressive. What do you think about our ability to maybe get over that 20-point mark? Because I think we can hold them to 20. How you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely doable. It's definitely something we've been doing consistently all year against just as good and better defenses. So that we haven't really, I think that's the key. Look at like a guy like Darren Nandy, Neil Farrell, Tershawn Wharton, Mike Dana, guys that are going to be kind of behind Chris Jones in that rotation or moving into their base. Those aren't guys that are going to really scare anyone, right? So that I think is great. again, there's no one really on that D line outside of Chris Jones that really kind of strikes fear into you. I think Karlaftis is going to get there as a player. I think he's really developing well for them. He's turning into the type of player. He's kind of like that Trey Hendrickson type archetype of a power rusher. So he's going to get there. But I think the key is how they attack these linebackers and getting, because again, Gabe, Bolton, and Tranquil, they're good. And they got the shutdown guy outside. Trent Duffy's a good player. So there's not really a whole lot of weaknesses in their backfield and defensive backfield. It's more about, that up front line. And this is a game where it just kills me not having Keaton Mitchell in this one. That's really the type of guy that I think
using that speed on the edge.
Yeah, and like you see it from Gus Edwards, and Gus has been really good, especially in short situations. But when he kind of gets out in space, he just doesn't have that dynamic wiggle to him. It really makes me wish that Derrick Henry trade would have went through. How much different would this have been?
Yes.
So unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Maybe, hey, he's a free agent.
He is
can make it happen this upcoming year.
A guy that deserves a lot of kudos though is Justice Hill, because when they get him out in space, he's got some juice and he's really
playing well.
Football. It's best football of his career. So
he's got some underrated power too.
He does, and he just runs like a madman, right? And contributes on special teams, does all that good stuff. So and Delvin Cook, a little bit of wiggle in his game, not something I'm gonna again expect a whole lot out of, but I really think that run game is going to be key, especially early in this one. This is one where I'll look to them to establish the run, whereas against the Texans, I was kind of puzzled by that strategy.
Right. So let's flip over to our defense versus the Kansas City offense. I don't know about how you feel, brother, but I personally think it's going to be, I don't care who's coming in. Like, I don't care if it's like the 85 Dolphins, like some of the most prolific offenses in NFL history. I don't care, man. I think it's going to be really hard for any team to come into Baltimore with the way the defense is playing right now, the way the crowd is right now. It's going to be really hard for any team to come into Baltimore and consistently score and move the ball up and down the field. How do you feel about our defense versus their offense?
You heard Mahomes say it himself in that interview when he was on the Amazon Prime game. He said Seattle and Baltimore are the toughest stadiums he's played in. So, that's the tip of the cap to Baltimore. And that's not even talking about biggest rivals or, really kind of talking out of his ass. It's kind of consistently said. And the Texans had 5 pre-snap penalties in the first half just because they couldn't hear. They were trying to work their silent count. I do like the matchup. Obviously, they got some studs, a guy like Travis Kelce, a guy like Rashee Rice. Marquise Valdes-Scantling always seems to make plays in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You never know what the hell you're going to get from Tony. He can obviously go out there and make a play for you, or he can grab the ball and punt it into the stands. Who knows, right? So
yeah, and then Mahomes' legs, man, that's always a factor as well.
The key to their offense, for me, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is, he's so goddamn talented and fun to watch. But Isaiah Pacheco and the way he's playing, I think that's really the key. The way he's able to churn out, he shut down that game against Buffalo, that 9-yard rush on 1st and 10 when they got the ball back was super impressive. And he's been doing that all year. He runs like a psychopath. He runs like he's literally on cocaine. It's something to see. So
I love how high he brings his knees up, man.
It's just, he's angry. I wish he was on my team. I love that about a player.
And wasn't he like a 7th round or undrafted?
I think he was undrafted. Yeah, he was a UDFA.
Yeah.
And that's funny, playing ahead of a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire that they drafted in the first round.
First round.
Polar opposites, right? Big thing to watch this week, guys, is that Joe Thuney injury. So he hurt his pec. I think you'd have to cut off his damn arm to keep him out of this game, to be completely honest. I think he's going to play, but I don't think he's going to be himself. But he completely shut down Ed Oliver. Super impressive performance in that one-on-one matchup.
Yeah.
Took the Bills' best defensive lineman out of it. How's that going to match up with a guy like Justin Madubuike? That's really where I go to for key matchups, the way Kyle Hamilton's going to match up with Travis Kelce. That's, again, like you were saying, looking at matchups that really favor the Ravens. Obviously, again, Kelce, one of the best out there, one of the best to ever play the tight end position. But Kyle Hamilton is playing some damn good football, very physical football right now. So, what can they do there? For me, the key to the Ravens' success on offense is going to be how their edge rushers play against Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. Two guys that really don't blow my skirt up. That interior is really good. Tooney, Creed, and Trey Smith, 1, 2, 3, top of the league type interior offensive line. No doubt about that. But Taylor is good for 3 penalties a game. I've never seen anything like it. And Donovan Smith he's fine. He's an average left tackle. He had been for Tampa Bay for a long time. It's not bad by any means, but that's where you can beat this team. That's where they need to. And the thing that concerns me is the way Patrick Mahomes is able to break tackles and then get the ball out is really impressive. So that's something, we've seen from the Ravens edge rushers. How many times did we say, wow, we were close with a guy like Jadeveon Clowney? So it's not just getting that pressure, it's closing. So I really think with a guy like Mahomes, you got to get pressure. And when you get your hands on him, you got to finish those sack opportunities. Other than that, they're going to play it the way they always play it. I mean, we talked about this a ton last year. They're going to give up a little bit in the run game. They're going to let you play a little bit in the middle of the field. But they tighten up like a boa constrictor in the red zone, and that's where this game is going to be won or lost. The guy that I'm looking at as kind of their X factor, a little bit Marquez Valdez-Scantling, because again, he always seems to make plays in the playoffs. But Rashee Rice is that guy that he's just that guy that seems to get lost in the shuffle during a play, and then he's just somehow wide open. So how they kind of work him and how they work in, I mean, we can talk about this a little bit more specifically, but how they're going to work in Marlon Humphrey sounds like he's coming back. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, man. I think, Mike, my 3 keys on defense is limit the runs on first down. If we can hold Pacheco to 1, 2, 3 type of yards on first down, and then you put eyeballs on Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. Like, those are the 3 guys I feel like can really hurt you. The guys that give me a little bit of worry, right? It's Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Pacheco. If other guys like, I don't know, I can't even think of some of the other receivers, Watson or the other tight end. Like, if those guys beat you, I feel like you can live with that. Like, but you just can't let Rice, Travis Kelce, or Pacheco take over this game. I think those are the three guys you really got to keep eyeballs on. I think that we're definitely in a unique spot this year where we get a lot more turnovers, and Patrick Mahomes has shown at times, especially this season, that he has kind of thrown some dicey throws, kind of letting his guy have a shot at it. And sometimes the ball will go the other way to the defense. I want to look at a few games here because I can't find it in my notes, but there was a couple, I think in December, Kansas City, their offense had a couple of kind of stinkers. And this was recently in December. They had like a 17-point game, a 19-point game, and then a 14-point game. They did not move the ball against the Raiders. And the big key there was they kept turning the ball over. The Raiders got multiple interceptions, and I think that's something that the Baltimore Ravens can do. How do you feel about the Ravens defense, possibly getting some turnovers against Mahomes?
Yeah, that was an area that didn't really pop out this week. CJ really protected the ball. I don't think they put the ball on the ground. No, they didn't.
No. But I mean, Stroud was already top in the league coming into this game,
protecting the football
and his turnover ratio.
Yeah, that's the big thing is the big thing with their offense is they just don't have high talent at the wide receiver position, right? So when you've got guys that aren't able to get as open, you end up having to force the ball into some tight windows. And I think where I could see the pick coming from is actually the linebackers, because they've done a really good job of baiting teams this year. They baited the hell out of Tua. It doesn't always end in a pick. So, I mean, I don't really know how many Rowe and PQ have for picks, but the way they bait them into throws and then jump the lanes, that's something that I think works really well against a team that runs as many in-break and crossing route types as the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's where they're going to be forced to go with the ball. Again, we saw it this week. Teams are not going to get the ball over the Baltimore Ravens' head unless it's, a broken coverage like what happened against Agnew from the Jaguars. That wasn't just, getting beat deep. They just blew the coverage. Millett didn't communicate with Stevens or sin? It doesn't matter. It's not a team that you're going to push the ball over their heads. So that's where, makes me feel pretty good about, a guy like MVS who gets deep on you, a guy like, even sending like Richie James out there, Kadarius Toney as kind of a deep threat. They're going to have to work the middle of the field. And it's really going to come down to how they can kind of track Rice and Kelsey. They need someone on them at all times. Again, they just somehow always seem to get open. And so how much can they limit that? How much can they jump those lanes? But Mahomes is going to be forced to throw some tight windows. And the big thing I want to see is when they get those opportunities, you got to make the catches on them. That last week, Kyle Hamilton had that one tip up. Right,
man, that was so close.
It was killing me. And it's just one of those
heart rate.
It was in that first half when the offense was struggling, and I was like, "That's the turnover that they need." So again, you just got to make it take advantage of your opportunities when they come your way.
Yeah, man. I gotta say it. I was feeling it. I was nervous, blood pressure through the roof during that, especially during the first half. But like you said, it felt like, man, we could finally take a deep breath here. We're in the playoffs. We're doing this thing. Come out with the win. I think that adds a lot of confidence going into this game against the Chiefs. And I want to show you this comment real quick because I've been surprisingly seeing a lot of this, like all over in the comments, and it's something that I want to address because I've been seeing a lot of it. So he says, I definitely rather have Darby than Marlowe the rest of this season. I think this is kind of crazy because Marlon Humphrey is an all-pro corner, but I think people are also, you don't want to fix what ain't broke. Kind of the same situation with Mark Andrews. It's like some people are like, oh, we're playing better with Mark. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to mess with what you got going, the chemistry, because these DBs are playing so well together. I feel like, especially in zone, like they're passing stuff off well, communicating well. And then I think also some of the fans are kind of scarred from, what was it, like against the Steelers, the game winner to George Pickens.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like, what's your thoughts on this? Is this just like crazy talk or what?
I'm not gonna say it's crazy talk because there's a logical thought behind it, and I get it. It's like it happens, right, when you get a good player returning from an injury. But I'll say what I said about Mark Andrews, and we've seen them rotate corners in and out. You've seen Millette snap in, and then you see Kyle Hamilton playing the slot, and they don't really play that Dean Pease style of defense where it's like you're the left corner, you're the right corner, you're the slot corner, you're the free safety, you're the strong safety. Rotate to the strong side of the field and go play defense. This is one of those things where Mike McDonald knows how to put guys in a position to succeed. And I think the real value here is having a guy like Marlon Humphrey, who's played so well in his career in the slot, and being able to put him in there in matchups against guys like Kelsey, where you can, give him a different look, get against guys like, oh my God, I'm just blanking on the slot corner's name.
Arthur Millette.
No, Rashee Rice. They line him up. They line him up in the slot all the time. So giving him a more physical look than a guy like Millette, right? And that's in addition to what you can do with Hamilton, or you can move Hamilton back into a split safety look, and then you know what I mean? Like it adds another piece in his toolbox that he can deploy, and he's the type of defensive coordinator that will play the game that way. It's not going to be a static thing. He's dynamic. He moves guys. So I think it's just a value add. But do I want to see Ronald Darby now not play? No, I'd love to see Darby continue to play, and I think they can now work Marlon and slow, again, sub packages. I would use Marlon Humphrey absolutely in the red zone where he plays so physical. Him and Brandon Stevens do such a good job of playing that trail technique where they are able to, jam and then trail and get their hands all over guys. So, situational football is what I think it comes down to. And again, Mike McDonald just putting guys in a position to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially if we can get Marlon in the nickel, get him in their slot there, because a lot of times, man, the Chiefs will just line Kelsey up out wide.
That's right.
They'll put him in the slot. They won't even put him in line off of the tackle. A lot of times they're just going to say, go be our slot receiver. And if we had Marlon consistently going against Travis Kelce, I know Travis Kelce can get his sometimes, but I like that matchup with the physicality that Marlon Humphrey plays with. That would be fun to see, especially like Marlon's not a small guy either. Like he's not going to get consistently mossed or out physicaled by a guy like Travis Kelce. So that could be a fun, interesting wrinkle if we keep Marlon in the slot, having him see a lot of Travis Kelce. And then you got Darby and Stevens, holding down the outside. And there's not necessarily the guy that you would want, to have Marlon Humphrey on consistently on the outside, maybe besides Rashee Rice. But I still believe that a guy like Brandon Stevens and Ronald Darby can hold their own against a guy like Rashee Rice. So shout out to Asmodeus for the McChickens. Anyone going to the game?
That's my plan. I just need these tickets to come through. So I got a couch to sleep on. I'm gonna drive it's a 7.5 hour drive from my house. So I'm gonna just rip it Saturday. My wife spent the weekend away, so I kind of got the brownie points before this came up. So rip down Saturday, come back Monday. Just got to figure out the ticket situation. So if I get tickets, I'll be there.
Yeah, man. I can only imagine how loud the stadium was. I heard it coming through the broadcast, and obviously the 5 false starts. I can only imagine how rocking the stadium is going to be in the AFC Championship, especially against Patrick Mahomes. That caliber of opponent, man, it's going to be rocking.
Yeah, it's going to be mental. Absolutely mental. I need to be there.
Tickets $550 right now. Yeah, man, they're getting up there. So do you have any I want to show this comment real quick from Cole Beasley that I saw on Twitter earlier. It says the Chiefs only had 5 third downs in the game, and they averaged 8 yards per play. Defense had a lot of injuries. It was an uphill battle, but it's hard to win like that. So he's saying it's hard to win a type of game where, you have 5 third downs because they didn't get put in that position a lot, and averaging 8 yards per play. That's definitely an anomaly from what we've seen in previous games from the Chiefs, but it almost feels like it's a different animal when Patrick Mahomes gets into postseason, man. It feels like, especially with the play calling too, like they dial it up, they're locked in, they're focused, and they have that experience. So, yeah, I do agree with them that it's hard to win like that, but it's the Chiefs, man, in the playoffs. They've been to 6 AFC championships in a row for a reason.
Yeah, and they just find ways to win, right? Like you had Pacheco averaging 6.5 a pop. That means that you're not really facing, and you kind of said it in your keys to the game, when you're, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3 every time. It's not easy to get. It's just not hard to get that conversion because you're not going 2nd and 9, and then it completely changes the way you call plays. But really, what they did so well to me was long plays. You go down the list and you had Pacheco with a 29-yard rush, Clyde Edwards-Helaire with a 28-yard rush, Mahomes had a 24-yarder. Then you look at the receivers, Kelce with a 29-yard catch, 32-yard catch for MVS, 25 for Rashee Rice, just kind of stacks, right? So they were actually playing a little bit more of a dink and dunk game, but they had these massive gains when they needed them, and they were flipping the field. And that's where I do think it benefits the Ravens, because that's something they've done a really good job of, at least in the pass game. In the run game, especially early in the year, I think back to, Zach Moss having like a 54-yard run on us, and they struggled a little bit with the run game. So that's definitely going to be a key, but to me, it's all about limiting those explosive plays, and the Chiefs are just one of the best at doing them, because that's what Patrick Mahomes does to you. Yeah.
So what are your final thoughts on this game? Maybe a score prediction, and just kind of like the 1,000-foot view looking down Ravens and Chiefs AFC Championship.
Final thoughts is win the trenches, win the game. And I'm going to say that every time. You win the trenches, you protect the football, which is the two things the Baltimore Ravens did last week, and they won the game. That's how you win playoff football, in my mind, especially protecting the football. So if they do those two things, they win. I think the score is going to be actually lower than many are expecting, and I'm going with a 23-20 Baltimore Ravens win. Heart attack fuel.
Yeah, man. I had to pull out the blood pressure meds for this one. I am a little bit more confident than you are, Cole. I do also think it's going to be kind of low scoring, especially for the Chiefs, But I think we're going to take care of business, man. I think this team just feels, I don't know, man. You've been a Ravens fan for a long time. Doesn't this team just feel different? Like, the energy, the leadership, the coaching, like everything is there for the taking. And I don't really see any team coming in here and putting up a lot of points here. And I know 20 is not a lot of points, but I'm going to go with Kansas City 14, and I'm going to go Ravens 27. So I'm thinking, man, we saw it. We'll talk about this briefly real quick before I let you go. We saw Lamar Jackson unleashed in the run game. The Kansas City Chiefs, they got a great defense, but like we talked about, 24th against, in yards per carry. Then you throw in the quarterback driven run game to worry about as well. And I think things could get ugly for them trying to, stop our run game. And then if you really want to sell out to stop the run game, it's not like we don't have weapons that can make you pay. So, what did you think of Lamar Jackson going 100 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns in the postseason? This is something me and Engraven talked about briefly, about how he felt like they were holding something back, for Lamar Jackson in the postseason. Do you think we're going to unleash Lamar Jackson again in the rushing department?
I honestly think Lamar, to me, I don't think they held anything back. A lot of that was scrambles, right? And he was just making the right read and taking what the defense gave him. To me, it was just really good decision making. And just, if he saw a scramble lane, there was no hesitancy. He just took it. I was a little surprised to see like the draw, but the draw worked so damn well on that touchdown. But they didn't use a ton of options, so I wouldn't really say that they unleashed him. I just think he was just playing. He's just locked in right now. Like he really is. He's making all the right decisions. I don't even think PFF charted him with a turnover-worthy play in this game. It's just one of those things.
The only thing I can think of is that one throw in the end zone towards Likely.
Yeah, that was
a little bit
that
dicey.
was a really good break on the ball. He just tried to squeeze that one. Actually, that was a great play because I don't know if you noticed, but Likely pointed up in the air and he was saying like throw it up. And then on the touchdown, how did he catch it? He just kind of threw it up to him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to see him point up. And Lamar was tapping his helmet, which means I should have went up on it. But he just thought he was going to squeeze in that window. They didn't chart that as a turnover-worthy play, though. I think it's because I'm kind of surprised now that I think about it, because you are right. That's damn close. But maybe it's because it was such a good defensive play. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Sometimes, defense, man, they make plays. They break on the ball, man. But yeah, man, I'm excited for this game. As always, everyone in the comments, everyone in the live chat, man, thanks for coming out. Make sure to drop your score predictions in the comments section below. And Cole Jackson has a fire video on Ronnie Stanley that he put together. He does excellent film study, very knowledgeable, not only on the Ravens, but just football, excellent football mind. So make sure you guys go check out his channel. Again, it'll be a link in the description for Ronnie Stanley's breakdown that he did. And Cole, do you have anything else that you're working on? Anything that people should know?
Yeah, so I'll have a breakdown coming out in the morning, kind of looking at the defense or the offensive adjustments, really breaking down how the Texans were attacking them, and then what Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson did at halftime to kind of come out, and what I think was the key to victory in this one. So be on the lookout for that one, dropping 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, Cole, thanks for coming out. Chat, thanks for coming out as well, man. Make sure to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. Go check out Cole's channel as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.